allow your viewers to request to join as a guest in your broadcast?
Oh,
Do we
no.
want that off?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not seeing any.
Does it say live at the top of the thing?
Yep.
Okay. We're live then.
All right. Got one.
All right. Hello, gardening friends and fellow flower bulb lovers. My name is Jenny Sanfilippo. I am the flower and garden expert here at Holland Bulb Farms. And we are going to talk about one of my favorite bulbs for spring planting, which are tuberous begonias. It could be that I have a lot of shade in my yard, so they work well. It could also be their very showy, beautiful blooms, their ease of growing. So a lot of times people, especially in colder climates, will want to start their tuberous begonias inside, in the late winter, early spring months, anytime between the end of February to March or April. So it just kind of helps to get a little jump start, because they can be kind of slow to start, taking about 6 to 8 weeks until you see leaves or anything. Starting your begonias indoors early is very, very good thing to do.
Sorry, I was interrupted.
Oh. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. This is our first live video, so we're kind of experiencing some technical issues here and there. We're trying to figure it out, but we should be able to bring the broadcast about the begonias.
Sorry.
Oh,
Keep going.
okay. Sorry. I'm working with Kat here. She's our graphic designer. We're kind of teaming up on this to make this happen. So sorry for any delay. But now on to the begonias. So I kind of want to talk about the difference between a smaller begonia and these really nice large begonias we have. So this here is a Dutch grown begonia, which they tend to be a little bit on the smaller side. You can see they're healthy, they have good eyes, but they're only about an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches in diameter. And then what we just got in from California are what are called AmeriHybrid Begonias, and they are much larger in size, coming in at almost 3 inches in diameter for some of these. Lots of eyes, which the eyes are basically the growing points, and that's where you're going to get growth from. So the more eyes you have, the more lush of a plant you're going to get. So if you find the small begonias in the store, they're going to grow and produce plants for you. But I highly suggest getting these large AmeriHybrid begonias. We have several varieties on the website. We have hanging basket varieties, ruffled flowered varieties, double begonias, some picotee, which are usually like a two-tone where it's a solid color, and then the edge of the flower petal has another color like red or white. So lots of varieties to choose from, and I'm telling you, these large begonias they're just gonna produce spectacular flowers. So that's kind of the difference between the smaller, typically Dutch grown bulbs, and the large AmeriHybrid begonias. So after you have decided which kind you are going to buy and you have them in your possession, you will want to start them indoors, if at all possible. If you're not able to and you wait until later in May and June, you can just plant them outside, but getting a jump start on them is a really good idea. So first I'm going to talk about if you had several pots or planters, or if you wanted to plant them outside in the ground. You would want to start them in a tray to kind of make the most out of the space you have. So I just am using a tray that I had some succulents planted in last year. It's kind of shallow. I think a little bit of a taller tray might work better, but this should this should do the job because we're just starting them. We're not going to keep them in here the whole season. So we have a nice soil mix. You can use any sort of container mix. Anything that allows for good drainage is, you know, what you want. So I would definitely invest in a high quality potting soil mix. And in this particular tray, I'm going to plant anywhere from 10 to 12 begonias. And what we're going to start in this one is one of my favorites. They are absolutely just stunning. They are the Sunrise Sentiment Begonias, and they're called sentiment because they're fragrant, which doesn't happen often with begonias. They have like a lovely lemon yellow smell. They're just beautiful. They have these like gorgeous kind of apricot yellow blooms with red on the petals. They're stunning. And the Sunrise Sentiment are really only available as, an AmeriHybrid. So they're not available as a Dutch grown bulb. So there's also Pink Blush Sentiment, which is also a fragrant begonia. That's like a light pink color. But today we're planting the Sunrise Sentiment. And when you plant them, you'll notice they're kind of odd shaped. They aren't like a tulip bulb where you clearly know what side is up. But one good way to tell is if you can see any sort of pink little buds, those are the eyes. So that's where the growth is going to come from. So that you want to plant upwards. If you aren't seeing any eyes yet, don't worry. They often show up later. Like this one, I don't really see any visible eyes, but I'm not worried about it. But I can clearly see the roots. These are last year's roots. They're just dried up. So this is the side that goes down because obviously, roots grow into the soil. So I'm going to just plant them at a real shallow depth. So there's just a little bit of soil surrounding them. Planting in trays, you can really get a lot started compared to if you were going to plant them in pots. You would need a lot of room, which maybe you have, but planting them in trays allows you to kind of plant more. This one has a really nice bud on it, so I think we'll get some really good growth to start with that.
I love begonias.
Yeah, begonias they're just, I don't know. I have so much shade in my yard that it's hard to always find stuff that has pretty flowers. And begonias definitely have some of the showiest blooms out there. So let's see. I got 10 in here, which is a good start. I could probably fit a couple more. There's a little bit more space. So, all right, here we go. So we're not going to keep these in there, so they can be a little bit closer together than if you were planting them in the ground.
How long before they sprout above the soil?
Usually, depending on where you have them started, how much sun they're getting and warmth, it's anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. So they can definitely take time. And what I've noticed when I've planted begonias is the initial sprouting is kind of slow, but once they have sprouted, they really tend to fill in a lot faster. So, if you're waiting until May, well, if you're in a cold place, you probably don't want to even put them outside until the end of May. So you still have plenty of time if you wanted to start them now or even any point in April or May. So yeah, generally about 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm going to add a little bit of water, just kind of around the soil. You don't want to pour the water directly on the tubers. And they don't need to be overly saturated. So just enough to moisten, and when the roots start growing, they have, a little moisture in the soil. And then, so when you initially plant them, you want to do this by, watering in the soil And then as far as like once they have been growing, I would say I would check them, maybe twice a week. And if the soil seems really dry, you can add a little bit more water, but they don't need to be watered on a daily basis. Bulbs are really susceptible to rotting prior to sprouting. So just, you don't want them to be dry, but they need a little bit of moisture. So we will leave this on a sunny window, someplace that gets some direct light, but you don't want it like blazing hot. You don't want to fry them out, but you also need some light to get them started. So we'll leave this tray here on we have a little bit of water coming out. We'll leave this tray on a sunny window, and then actually we'll leave these here, and we'll check back in a couple weeks on these to show you the growth once we see sprouts on them. So, okay. So that is if you're going to start a bunch of begonias, like, I would say if you have 10 or more you want to start, I would definitely start them in some sort of flat or tray. Like if you have a flat where you got like 4.5-inch perennials in, that would work. This tray seems to work. Otherwise you can directly start them in your basket or planter, and that's what we're going to do here. So one of the types of begonias that's really popular are hanging basket begonias. The flowers and the leaves are pendulous. They tend to cascade over the basket and around the basket. And I picked a classic favorite, red hanging basket begonias. To me, when I think of begonias, I think of scarlet or red begonias. And I think they're just really showy and make a good impact. So again, we have a nice container, light, airy potting mix here. And we have this nice hanging basket. And with the hanging basket, you can kind of put them fairly close together because you want your basket to really get full. So a basket of this size, I would put anywhere from like 3 to 5 begonias in there. I want it to be really full. So I am going to plant 5 of these red AmeriHybrid hanging basket begonias in the planter. So again, you want to plant them fairly shallow, just kind of just below, so the soil's surrounding them, but not necessarily even covering the buds. Did is I did kind of 4 on the outside and 1 in the center. So that should turn out to be a fairly full basket once it starts to grow. And we'll do the same thing with a tray. We'll leave these both in kind of a sunny window, let them grow for a couple weeks, and once we have sprouts, we'll check back in with everyone, show you guys all the progress. And then, hopefully this summer when they're growing and they're in the ground, we can show you the end result. So yeah, tuberous begonias, really great part sun plant. You can grow them in shade, but they do need a little bit of sun. If they have no sun at all, like a really heavily shaded area, you're not gonna get any blooms from them. So you want to make sure that they either get like dappled sun, like through a tree, or morning sun is preferable. Like a hot afternoon sun is probably gonna scorch the leaves and dry them out. And as far as watering, once they have sprouted and they're growing outside, I just water them like you do your normal hanging baskets. Check the soil. If the soil seems like it's really dry, give it enough water that the water drains through. If, the soil seems really saturated, you probably want to hold off on watering because they need some moisture, but not too much. Their leaves are a little bit succulent in nature. So that is the lowdown on planting tuberous begonias, one of my favorite spring planted bulbs. And thank you for tuning in and tuning in with us. And if you guys have any questions after the broadcast, we're happy to answer them. Just leave a comment with any questions you have, and visit hollandbulbfarms.com for all your AmeriHybrid begonias. They're going to produce beautiful plants for you this summer.
Bye.
Bye.